3, 2, 1. June 1st, 2023 was a good day for the children of Jefferson County, West Virginia. It was a day when the adults in the room decided to initiate an extra layer of protection for the children of the county to keep them safe from sexual grooming. Unfortunately, this constitutionally sound layer of protection was repealed on December 19th, 2024. I'm talking about a county-wide ordinance. This was to protect the children of the county from adult live performances that were obscene. Was the ordinance doing what it was written to do? Why was it repealed? What recourse do the Christians and conservatives of Jefferson County have now that it's been repealed? Let's not waste time, folks, because kids need saving and protecting.
The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion.
Okay, folks, before I proceed with the topic of today's video, let me remind you to please leave a like on this video. Leave a comment below it. Tell me what your thoughts are. Please share this video with others who you feel might be interested in this topic. And, of course, I always put the donation link for the Lion Tribe below the video. So, if you feel like donating, go right ahead. So this ordinance, titled Jefferson County Ordinance Barring Minors from Attending Adult Live Performances, it was not only well written, but prior to its passage, it had been thoroughly researched. It contained clear definitions of keywords and phrases. It explained potential financial and jail time penalties. It expressly explained that only those who knowingly commit the act could be held responsible. And it also mentioned severability. For those who don't know what that means, it's just a fancy word for saying that only the constitutional parts of the ordinance would stay, while unconstitutional stuff could be removed if need be. So, it was primarily a former county commissioner, Jennifer Krause, who local Christians and conservatives had to thank for crafting this ordinance. And I say former commissioner because, as those in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia are aware, she was one of two commissioners who were removed from office for the crime of, drumroll, resisting Green New Deal nonsense that was being forced on Jefferson County residents. So I reached out to Jennifer Krause personally to learn a little bit more about this situation. I knew kind of superficially what had happened back when it did, but I wanted to hear straight from her and her take on things since the repeal. She explained to me that when she was writing this ordinance up, she communicated with then State AG Patrick Morrissey. She communicated with him and his office to make sure that what she was writing didn't conflict with other laws. So she researched in that way. She also looked up similar Supreme Court cases on this subject, and she also found a similar ordinance from a place in Florida that seemed to be working pretty well. To sum it up, she did her homework. When she brought it up in the commission meetings, she got resistance from two commissioners at the time. Current commission president Stephen Stollifer, who he insisted that the public have a hearing, that it should take place before they vote on it. And then also the other resistor was former Commissioner Jane Tabb. Now she has since retired from the county commission. Per Mrs. Krause, there was the typical time allowed for public comment on the ordinance prior to voting. So it wasn't like the public was blindsided without any chance to comment at all, any chance to voice dissent. And Mrs. Krause also informed me that it was Jane Tabb who had called the ordinance a Hitlerian move. Yes, you heard that correctly. Tabb, who I have been told is a church-going woman herself, thought that protecting children from sexualized and obscene adult live performances was akin to Adolf Hitler's murderous ethnic cleansing. Rational comparison? You decide. Shortly after the ordinance passed, there was a Pride Festival hosted in the neighboring Berkeley County. In the woke opposition to the ordinance, they vowed to fight the new law. So, nothing says freedom like adults being able to shake their rump for children, apparently. Fast forward to now, after the repeal, and what are the LGBTQ etc. folks saying today? Fairness West Virginia, which is a leftist activist group, wrote this in an article. Quote, "From the beginning, it was clear that this ordinance had nothing to do with actually protecting children, and everything to do with making LGBTQ plus people seem like a dangerous threat to families," said Andrew Snyder, Executive Director of Fairness West Virginia. I'm going to pause there. Because right off the bat on his quote here, he's being hyperbolic, so he's over-exaggerating the point to try to make a point, and he's also strawmanning. So nobody, anywhere, conservatives, centrists, liberals, whatever, is saying that LGBTQ folks, all of them, are targeting children. Nobody's saying that. The ordinance didn't say that, wasn't worded. I heard none of those words come out of anybody's lips. And he says it had nothing to do with protecting children. Well, that's weird, because the word children was written in the ordinance quite often. In fact, it said minors, and it defined what minor is, under 18. Interesting. So he's lying. He's gaslighting folks as well in that quote. Let me continue to read the article. So, like I said, he's the executive director of Fairness West Virginia. Continuing the quote, "It's a dangerous stereotype that should be beneath our elected leaders. Oh. Drag is a beloved art form, that's an opinion, that has brought joy and laughter to millions around the world. Yes, millions of adults. It might be an art form, it might bring joy and laughter, but let's restrict it to the adult world. That's where it used to be, that's where it used to stay, and that's where it needs to remain." Back to the article. So that's the end of Andrew Snyder's quote. The rest of the articles, next part of the article says, "Because of how the ordinance was written, Fairness West Virginia and other groups pointed out when the ordinance was adopted that it did not actually ban drag performances." Okay, now, former Commissioner Krause, she actually made that point herself. This doesn't ban drag. She was being clear on that. This does not ban drag. You can still have your drag parties. You can still have your drag events. Just don't have minors that present. That's all. Okay? Do your thing without kids around. Instead, the ordinance was designed to muddy the waters, this is what the article was claiming, and make event organizers think twice about hosting a drag show. Yes, think about who's coming. That's all you got to think about. And actually enforce the rules of who's coming. That's all you got to think about. Fearing that they might face fines or jail time. Of course, if you break the ordinance. Okay, here goes Schneider again, quoting, "And actually, it worked. It worked," he says. Okay. "It worked," Schneider said. "I know of at least one drag performance that was originally crafted to be an all-ages, family-friendly event. But because this ordinance was adopted, several families were turned away." Okay. If those families were trying to bring their minor children, they deserve to be turned away, number one. Number two, after the ordinance had been passed, you should not have been making any plans at all to make it all ages. But of course, he's got to add this part too for pity points for his side. They have to make it seem like the ordinance was such a bully move and it was so evil to have it in the first place. Those poor parents who wanted to bring their kids to watch men shake their butts and fake breasts in front of the kids. They couldn't do it. Those poor parents. Anyways, now that I've covered some backstory, I've arrived at the main part of today's show. So I traveled on over to Jefferson County, and I attended the last We the People meeting that was on January 13th. I wanted to hear from some of the local Christians and conservatives about their thoughts on this topic. Here you go.
We're going to open with a word of prayer, and Priscilla has volunteered to do that for us tonight. So if you can all just stand for it, and then as soon as we're done, we'll say our pledge.
In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings you bestow upon us and on our country. Keep faith with ourselves and with our leaders, and lead them on the right path so that they can keep our country free. We thank you for the other blessings that you have provided to us, and we give all in good gracious thanksgiving to you. In your heavenly name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then in the next clip, we hear from Jackie Milron, who was reading some words from Mrs. Krause, who was not able to attend the meeting that night.
All right, so this is a statement made by former Commissioner Jennifer Krause, and she couldn't be here tonight, so I'm making this statement on behalf of her. My apologies that I could not be here this evening. I had a previous engagement. I do, however, appreciate the opportunity to make this statement. One of the reasons I was elected was because I wanted to ensure the safety of Jefferson County's children. I was hearing from concerned residents about certain establishments in our area who were hosting drag shows. Not a problem for adults as far as I was concerned. However, these business owners were encouraging their patrons to bring children along. This is where my concern came in. We all know this type of behavior is called grooming, and it was wrong, sick, and perverse to expose children to such behavior. Now, I must be clear here. This ordinance was not enacted in order to ban drag shows. It solely focuses on obscenity where adult-like performances are concerned. I decided to do something about it, and I was entitled to do under West Virginia Code 7-1-4. I began to diligently craft the obscenity ordinance. From researching case law to, yes, bypassing Jefferson County's largely inept county attorney and going instead to our then Attorney General, Patrick Morrissey, now our governor. I took my questions to him, and he and some of his staff members worked with me to craft this constitutionally sound ordinance. I was happy to assist, and as this is a very important issue in today's America, I took my questions to and received guidance from now Governor Morrissey, because at that time he was the chief legal officer of the state of West Virginia, and he also was our neighbor, being a resident of this county. All politics are local, and as I often said, that Mr. Morrissey cares about this matter. I believe that Ms. Keys has been given bad legal information by one or more incompetent individuals. The obscenity ordinance did not need to be overturned, and it interfered with nothing. On the contrary, it curbed those predators from pursuing their grooming of Jefferson County's children any further. I also find it quite sad that so-called Republicans on our county commission took it upon themselves to overturn a constitutionally sound, well-crafted ordinance that served to protect our children. I do find myself wondering why they would do that. I do not believe it has anything to do with public hearings. The county commission is not required to hold public hearings to enact ordinances. The ordinance was noticed publicly and properly on our meeting agenda, and the public comment was heard. The ordinance passed because at that time had three duly elected women who were courageous and unafraid to do what is right for the well-being of children in Jefferson County. Speaking for myself, I was on the receiving end of much hate for even bringing this up concerning the issue and fighting against this. I did, however, have a great deal of support, but doing what is right versus doing what is easy, I will do right every time, and I do not ever apologize for that. Thank you so much for your time. Sincerely, Jennifer Krause. Thank you for allowing me.
Sure.
Some discussion ensued.
And I know as the president, I've issued, I don't know, publicly, through social media support for this ordinance and sort of disgust for the fact that the outgoing commission repealed it prior to leaving. So as the Jane Tabb, as she was outgoing at the end of the year, decided to raise this issue. So they let the issue, they said that they had given bad legal advice. They didn't say when they were given bad legal advice. They decided to let this be an ordinance that was on the books for over a year, and then decided as she was leaving that somehow the ordinance didn't comply with state law. And if you were here and you had plans to hear Mike Donnelly, who used to be part of the HSLDA, he works for another organization, he's a local attorney. The plan was to have him here and answer some of these questions and explain why this ordinance was perfectly fine and legitimate and didn't need to be repealed. He unfortunately or fortunately for him, had to go down to the swearing-in ceremony, and I think we got our dates crossed. So he agrees to come back next month, so that's going to be February, and speak to more to this ordinance and why it should never have been repealed in the first place. But again, thanks for Jennifer Krause for having the courage to put the ordinance, or put this ordinance together, put the work in, and have them at least voted in for a period of time. Unfortunately, hopefully the new commission will reconsider the ordinance as it stands.
Can we ask? Is that something that's on the table, Mr. Moon?
Yes. At the present time, it's going to the attorney to review it to make sure that we can put something together that's consistent with state laws. That the information that we were given, well, I wasn't there yet. The information given was contradictory to state law, and that's where they came up.
Did he state how it was contradictory?
Can I make a statement?
Yeah, sure. Open time.
I'm not that familiar on that,
So I think my statement, and I think I shared it with Eugene, I don't know if I shared it with Gary Dungan after a lot of back and forth.
Oh, you mean through email?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't actually post it. As Commissioner Krause said, and at the time that she presented, she had worked very close with our Attorney General to make sure this was constitutionally sound and there were no loopholes to create an environment of risk. One of my things in the repealing that just floors me, and one of the confusing things, was that state law's felony, this makes it a misdemeanor. That's not true.
Correct.
That is absolutely not true, and the ordinance was within the scope of the county commission with what we could do that didn't supersede. And so because this made it a misdemeanor didn't mean that they could never, that double jeopardy's been passed around. That's inaccurate. If you get stopped for DUI, you can't get stopped for DUI and arrested again. Right? Like how, but this is my main concern with the repeal of this. It's the children. They can't unsee, they can't undo, and unhear, And to Richard's point, the teacher that was on 17 felonies, great, maybe justice was served. But the children he violated, they'll never be the same. So trash in, trash out is what we're going to get. And so this was nothing more than to protect the children. Again, it didn't outlaw drag. You want to go to a gay pride parade or whatever, as long as there's no lewd acts, it's fine. So, but it's not a place for children. And I mean, I'm going to take it just a little further on my personal opinion. When you're in an eating establishment that is also a bar and the kitchen closes, I think kids should be gone. I don't think they need to be around drinking and all of that. No, that's different than a sexual ordinance or, you know, this ordinance. But that's my opinion as a parent. I don't think it's a place for, or as an adult, I don't think it's a place for children to be around cussing, drinking, you know, those types of things that occur. So that it's separate from this, but that's, I don't know that this went far enough to protect children from that type of environment either. But it is sound, and it was within the scope of the county commission. And to, I think Jean's point as well, this has been enacted for about 18 months. There's been no adverse impact on a business because this was enacted, or any type of establishment because this has been enacted. And I think it's just a travesty to say until it rises to the occasion of a felony, you can't take any action. I'm just gonna call it what it is, BS. It's a sad situation.
So it is something we want to pursue.
I received a strange response from Commissioner Keys saying that it's something to do with double jeopardy. And I responded to her and I forwarded it to you. I forwarded it to everybody, all the commissioners.
All right, yeah.
Her response made no sense to me. And I responded back to her and I said, I don't really understand how you're using double jeopardy in this context. Like, I don't know. And she made that statement to the public. And I don't understand.
Right.
Is she getting that information from Nathan Cochran?
That I couldn't tell you.
Because I'm so, it's confusing the matter further.
I see your point.
No shit.
Yeah, after I said some things on Facebook, I've been messaged by some commissioner, and was challenged that my opinion, you know, that my statement was, you know, wasn't necessary, and that whether or not I thought children should be subject, that somehow because we wanted to keep the ordinance in place, that somehow we were in favor of felony child abuse or something. It was just some sort of nonsense, and I wasn't gonna really hash it out on a text, through text messaging, which is why I was so happy when Mike Donnelly said he was going to be here again. He's going to be here next month, but I don't want to necessarily keep us here forever. I know it's 9:15.
And finally, I was able to interview a couple people. All right, everybody. I'm here with Ambrose Rucker. He's a Jefferson County resident, right? Okay. Ambrose, I'm going to ask you just a few questions, and then I'll let you get out of here.
All right, sounds good.
All right. So regarding this ordinance that was banning children from attending adult live performances, how did you feel about the ordinance originally?
I thought it was a good ordinance to have, very good common sense, keeping this type of adult entertainment at adult levels only, keeping kids out of it, made sense to me, good protection to have, and it was worked hand in hand with what the state law already had in place. So I thought it was a good ordinance to put on the books for us.
Okay. So how do you feel about how the 3 county commissioners decided to repeal that ordinance? How do you feel about that?
It definitely did not make sense to me. I was very opposed to that decision. Just seemed like it was a very rushed sort of deal that it had. The ordinance had already been in place for a good long while with no complaints at all. And then basically out of the nowhere, we were getting very little notice that it even was on the agenda to be repealed. It was there, they had the meeting, and they had the votes to repeal it, and it was gone. And very against that, and very against that decision. I hope they bring it back.
Okay, so you don't think voters had enough time?
I do not think they had enough time. And I don't think they gave enough heads up that this ordinance was up to be repealed, and I don't think they gave enough time at the meeting itself for public comment to try to dissuade them from voting to repeal it.
Okay. And how do you think voters can work with county commissioners to
to fix what's been done by repealing this ordinance?
Yeah, I think the best and easiest way to do it is just contact your local county commissioners, whether they're the ones for your area or just all of them in general. I'd say contact them all. They all have public info. Contact them on the commission website. Just email, call, text, even write a letter, whatever form of contact you're able to do, just to say, hey, I'm in support of the former obscenity ordinance. I did not like that the old one was repealed. I was against the decision, and I hope you will work to put a new one back on the law, and I will support that and vote for it.
Awesome. Thank you for talking with me, Andrews.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
You too.
All right, now I'm here with Gene Vizzosi. He is president of We the People here in Jefferson County. Just going to be asking him the same few questions that I asked Ambrose. Gene, so did you originally support the ordinance that Jen Kraus had put in place with the previous county commission?
Yeah, we did. We were very supportive of the ordinance that she had passed or that she had written, and we were very glad when the commission voted to approve it.
So, what are your feelings on the vote from the 3 county commissioners that voted to repeal it?
Well, what's disturbing is that the commission and these commissioners allowed this ordinance to be on the books for at least approximately a year and a half, maybe a little bit less. And so Commissioner Tabb, while she was leaving her office, and this was her last meeting as a commissioner, decided to raise this issue and repeal the ordinance, and was unfortunately able to get 2 of the commissioners to go along with her and repeal it. But that should never have been done. There was no convincing evidence that I had heard that this somehow conflicted with the state law. And so the motivation here is unclear to me why they would do that.
Okay. And the final question I have is, trying to think how I worded it with Ambrose. How do you think Jefferson County voters can work with county commissioners to get this corrected?
Well, one, you have to engage the voters so that they're aware of the ordinance. I think voter apathy is really, really a problem. So we just don't get enough people to come out to these commission meetings. It has to be really something in their backyard for them to come out and attend these meetings. So it's just going to be making people aware of this issue, and they're going to need to email their commissioners. They're going to have to go online, find their email the commission, and show up at the commission meetings and raise this issue until they decide to, vote on it again, or vote on maybe something that they say is going to be an improved ordinance based on the feedback they get from their attorney. But again, the original ordinance didn't have any conflicts that we were aware of, and had other counsel and attorneys who said that the previous ordinance was fine the way it was. So hopefully the commission will just simply use the exact same wording and vote to approve an ordinance again, basically that ordinance again.
Thank you, Gene.
Thanks.
Okay, now you know what some of the local Christian conservatives are feeling about this repeal. But let me do a few closing comments. One of the current commissioners, Kara Keys, who voted in favor of the repeal, which means she thought the ordinance wasn't a good idea, she made the claim that the ordinance conflicted with West Virginia Code Section 61-8A-4. I think I've referenced that in the show in a prior episode, that specific code. But she claimed that due to that conflict, it could lead to a lesser sentence for those who broke the county ordinance. For those who are unfamiliar with that West Virginia code, it's the one that forbids obscene material from being shown to or distributed to children. And I've looked at the code. I even looked at it again after reviewing this topic. and I read the ordinance, and many others have as well. We've compared the wording. We all arrive at the same conclusion. There's no conflict at all. In fact, there's no, I mean, in my opinion, the wording is very clear. The state code clearly is addressing obscene material, whereas the prior ordinance was addressing obscene live performances. I don't know how anybody can conflate those two words or phrases at all. I mean, I don't understand it unless they're not too bright, no offense, or they're just they're being duped, easily duped, or they're doing it on purpose. But all is not lost, folks. There are those who are willing to fight to have this ordinance restored, or something hopefully more powerful, myself included. Children are always worth protecting. Their innocence is worth preserving. We got to preserve them from, we got to protect them all from deviance, sexual deviance, and spiritual perversion. So as always I say, be bold as lions.